Going Deep podcasts. We've got Erik Burkhardt, super agent, repping the current number one pick, or the most recent number one pick in the draft, Kyler Murray. EB, thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Love the Going Deep pod. Y'all know I love the Barstool fam. Keep up with a lot of you guys, man. So I listen to you guys all the time when I'm driving. So glad to be on, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we wanted to talk free agency. Free agency is about to be upon us. Legal tampering and the free agency moratorium is about to close. We're going to have some guys actually putting pen to paper. I just wanted to ask, as far as the combine, legal tampering begins March 16th, but all the football people, all the agents that are repping these free agents to be have to be talking to GMs about their own players that they're trying to re-sign, but coincidentally, they also rep other players that are about to be free agents. So, before legal tampering begins on March 16th, how good of an idea do you have about who's going where?
So it's a great question, Stephen. I mean, I just got back from the combine, right? I was there all 8 days, Sunday to Monday, long week. I literally met with all 32 teams while I was there. Literally about 8 meetings a day. Typically go up to their hotel suites where they kind of have a boardroom set up and they've got their contract guy in there. A lot of times the general manager, assistant general manager, player personnel director, all the way through. So pretty intense meetings, a lot of fun. Obviously, I've known these guys a long time, so that's where the relationship comes in. But to answer your question, there's really levels to this stuff. I mean, big time levels. As Willie knows, he's been through it a few times. Like, it really just depends on the player, right? And so last year at this time, I had Frank Clark, who ended up ultimately we got him the highest paid defensive end 4-3 deal in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
But he was my franchise tag. As I'm hearing, a lot of the DNs this year are also going to get tagged. Now, we didn't sign the tag yet, so we weren't under contract when free agency hit until we signed the tag. So I was able to maneuver a lot more freely, if you will, and talk more openly about that. That being said, I didn't. Frank's rights were still owned by the Seahawks at the time. So I knew no matter what I could work out, I had to deal with Seattle, whether it be a sign and trade type situation. So on Frank's, for example, I mean, he's a high-level AA free agent. The Seahawks had a nice offer on the table already. So you're dealing – I mean, I knew the 3 to 4 teams when I left Indianapolis. I knew the 3 to 4 teams that would be in on him. It just would come down to what did they have to give up in terms of draft capital and working out the deal in terms of what I was looking for, which to me is the easy part because that's something I can actually control. But for a lot of free agents who are maybe B level or C level, I mean, their jobs are just as important, right? As big of money, but I typically left the combine knowing those 3 to 5 teams for each of my free agents that I know are going to be in on them. It's just the level of interest. The team maybe be like, all right, EB, we're calling you like day one opening window period, or like, hey, we'll start giving you a call in the next couple of weeks to really talk numbers. But and then other guys may be like, look, he's down the line for us. If plan A and B don't work out with some of the other guys we're going to target, we really like him. Where would you be on him money-wise? Well, here's kind of my range, my window. And then I know kind of where everybody stacks as I leave the combine. So I've got all my free agents up on my board. I know those typically for most of them 3 to 5 teams that I know are going to be in, and then who's more in, and then I can talk to my players about who's the best fit for what they do.
Gotcha. Now, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. A very interesting situation you brought up with Frank Clark because we will likely see the same thing with Yannick Ngakoue, who has already tweeted basically Jacksonville, like I'm done, I'm going somewhere else. But Jacksonville does have his rights and can franchise him, which he has not signed. Now, when legal tampering opens on March 16th, how much does that first phone call matter?
I mean, you already kind of know. So look, it matters. All the phone calls matter, right? If a GM is calling me or the contract guy about like getting a deal done and they call it like the first minute, like they're not effing around, right? Like it's go time. Let's like get down to it and work through it. So it all matters in the agent world. I can tell you this: last year, after kind of the deadline had opened and passed, and Frank hadn't signed his tender yet, his franchise tag tender, then. I mean, I remember where I was when, a couple GMs called me, but more specifically Brett Veach, the GM of the Chiefs.
Yep.
I remember where I was sitting, what kind of red wine I was drinking that evening when he called me. So it matters. And we really got down to some real business. Now, I knew I still had to work things out, and there were challenges to that. The hardest thing an agent can do speaking of the Jacksonville DN, is working that sign and trade deal. Because now I got 3 parties involved. It's not just like I want X, Y, and Z guaranteed money structured like this, APY of this. Okay, we want a deal. Let's paper it up, right? It's like you got to do all that, which is hard enough on a $100 million deal or a $50 million deal or a $30 million deal. That's hard enough. But then when the other team still owns them, and I've got to have them work together to get the right draft capital, they'll even relinquish the tag. That's literally the hardest thing in the agent's world to be able to do, is that sign and trade situation.
That makes a lot of sense.
A lot more moving parts there. But for a typical free agent who's just free, who's not dealing with the tag, I mean, it's kind of like that's the team that really stands out. But, you know, at the same time, if the team calls 2 hours later, you know, somebody calls me the first minute the window opens, we get down to business, and 2 hours later a team calls and says, all right, man, here's what we're going to do. And it's 20% higher than the next guy's offer. Like, now you're cooking. Now you can play ball. You got some leverage, and you start working it.
Yeah. How much do your I mean, you said you met with 32 teams, but how much do your relationships with teams matter with guys that you rep?
Huge. I mean, relationships in every business, as you guys know, are I mean, honestly, everything. When I first started off in the business, I didn't know anybody, and I would have told you, oh, it doesn't matter. It's all about the player. But now that I've been 15 years in, and I, you know, rep at NFL general managers, like I'm their agents. I have quarterbacks. I have head coaches. So it's like, man, you see the other side of it, and it's everything. Because it's not even the players I rep. Those relationships are obviously important, but it's more for my free agents. I'm just speaking in hypotheticals here, obviously.
Sure.
But maybe a month before free agency, I'm talking about in December of their final year of their contract, I'm able to call my contacts in the league and go, dude, you're struggling here at DN bad, for example. Like, what are you looking to do here? You can't draft a kid at 15 expecting him to come in and be Frank Clark, for example. Like, what are we looking at?
Yep.
You know, you have a real need. This is somewhere my guy would like to go. Are you going to be open to that as we get down the line? Or sometimes it's just a team that I have an unbelievable relationship and trust, and I know how they value players. And I say, listen, man, here's a guy. I've got an offer on a table. This is for 2 of my guys right now who went to the market. The last 2 months of the season, their teams were actively trying to get a deal done, a long-term deal done for my guys. And they made competitive offers where my guys are like, damn, that's real money. Like, I like it here. My wife likes it. But I'm able to pick up the phone and call 10 general managers and say, listen, do you think this is a good deal? I know you don't even need this guy or this position. Mm-hmm. However, is $7 a year fair for him? Where do you value him? And they'll be like, dude, in our system, all these teams can look it up and go, damn, in our system, he's a $9 to $10 million player. Like, we really value that, though. However, you need kind of these 4 or 5 scheme fits to value. Now, we're not going to pay that for this position, but that's who we think he is.
Right.
And I may do that with 10 to 15 teams and be able to call the team back, and it allows me and my client to have real good security about knowing what's behind door number 3, 4, and 5, so we can go down and turn down, 5 years, or 3 years, $15 million at $5 million a year.
Yep.
Right? Because 10 teams just told me to have you at 8. You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. That's all like super interesting. So we're gonna
based. Not to jump in, but that's just so relationship based. Like, not every agent can do that. I would say a very select few honestly can. Not to pat myself on the back, but that's how important those relationships are.